So this is lesson 2. This is called letting go of the past. And the whole idea is that something that happens in the past that's got a lot of negative emotional energy connected with it is affecting us in the present. And so decisions we make, directions in our life, which we want to take, get affected by past events. Now, if the past events are good, that's positive effect. If the past events are negative, it's better we clean them up because they affect our choices. You know, we have this saying, once burnt, twice shy. So you have a negative experience, and now you're reluctant to, let's say, enter a relationship or enter an agreement because in the past that agreement was broken or that relationship turned sour, or you took a certain position and you were mistreated, so now you're reluctant to take that position, even though you really want to. But now because that past event is still affecting you in the present, you don't do it. So you don't have actual complete control of your choices unless you clean up the negativity from the past. And so that's what this lesson 2 is about. So it's very important. Until we fully forgive, the past is going to control our future. Imagine you're driving a car and you're looking in the rearview mirror behind you to drive forward. Now nobody does that. That's stupid. Obviously, you look forward to drive forward. Now look at our life. How many people look forward to drive forward in their life? Less than you would imagine. If you want to achieve something in your life, you become very clear about what it is. You have a vision of it, and you start making plans how to achieve that vision. Many, many people are looking to the past and believing the past is going to repeat itself because this is how it's always been. This never happens to me, or this always happens to me. So the decisions that they're making are based on past events, assuming it's just going to be that way all the time. I'm not very this, I'm not very that. I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that. That's past. This has happened in the past. It always happens. That's past. I never have good relationships. Therefore, in the present, I'm not going to have good relationships. Driving forward by looking backwards. We gave that example. Or something that really bad happens is I've had bad relationships and I become so scarred in relationships I'm afraid to get close to people, and whenever the relationship is going well and I get close, I back out or I do something to disturb the relationship because I'm afraid to get close. That's an event of the past affecting the present. Or I've been unsuccessful financially and I've kind of programmed myself to fail financially based on the past. So even when things start going well, I sabotage myself because I believe I can never be wealthy. You probably experience one of these or some similar scenario. No, I can never do that well in anything. So when you start doing well, it goes against your programming. And you kind of bring yourself down to a lower level. So that's the problem with the past infecting the present. And when you hold on to resentment, that past event is actually very alive in the present. It's sometimes more alive in the present than it actually was in the past. Sometimes it's more damaging in the present because we have a history of how we've been damaged by that event. So in the present, it actually can feel worse for many people than it did in the past. You are your story. It's not what is happening to you that affects you. It is what you tell yourself that is happening to you that affects you. This is amazing. Something happens, 5 people will have 5 different stories of the same thing. And each story will affect each person in a different way. Have you ever been in a situation where a person next to you has become really upset about something? Have you ever been in a situation where a person next to you is really upset about something and it doesn't bother you? Why is that? Because you're seeing it one way, they're seeing it another way. Or you get really upset and they're not upset. You're seeing it one way, they're seeing it another way. So an event happens and then you tell yourself a story about what happened. It's subjective. The world's subjective. We all see the world a little bit differently. So we tell our story. The result of the story is how we're affected. If we change the story, if we see it differently, then we react differently. So when we're holding on to resentment, it's because we have a story that creates a reaction of resentment. It's a very important principle to understand. If I change the story, and I can change the story, and I'll need to change the story if I'm going to forgive, to the person didn't mean it, or they're having a hard time, a hard day, a hard life, their upbringing was such that caused them to act this way, they didn't really realize what they were doing, etc. When I change my story, when I enter their world, when I see things differently, or I see how would God see this situation? Maybe He put me in this situation to learn something. So when I see it that way, new story, new reaction. So the whole way that we learn how to overcome resentment is we have to change the story about what happened. We have to look at it in a more compassionate way. We have to look at it in a different way, so that the result of the story allows us to forgive. Or we could say, when you change the story, there'll be nothing to forgive, because nothing bad happened. So that's very important to understand. You can't reach for anything new if your hands are still full of yesterday's junk. So we have this story, and the story is creating a problem, and we can't move forward because our hands are full of the junk of the old story. We can't move forward because our hands are full. Sounds like a train, doesn't it? That's a bus in India. Like, you know, they don't drive with steering wheels, they drive with horns. So we're carrying the junk of our past, and the junk's in our hand, and we can't let it go, so we can't move forward. That's the whole problem. There's a lot in the past that needs to be dropped, let go of, as we said in the last lesson, detached from, put to rest, because it doesn't help us in the present. And a lot of us don't realize how much junk we have, how many resentments we have, and how much it's affecting us. But when you stop and think about it, you'll realize it's having a tremendous effect on so many things we do, so many interactions with people, the value of our relationships, our abilities, whether they be material or spiritual. It's having tremendous effect because we're carrying so much junk. A lot of times you have an argument with someone, or there's some friction. It's just because of the junk you're carrying. It's not even about what just happened. It's about a whole history of things. Somebody says something and that reminds you of how your father used to deal with you. Then you get upset. But what they did and said really wasn't upsetting to anybody but you, who has all the junk. So you can relate that. You can relate that to something in your life. You just think about it. What's that junk? So, in the Vedas, and specifically in Bhagavad Gita, they categorize the whole universe into three energies that affect us. And we just want to give you a little description of this. It's a philosophical point. I think it'll be interesting to some of you, especially those who are interested in Eastern philosophy, which is really what I specialize in teaching. So the first, or the lowest, is called Tama Guna. Guna means quality. Guna means rope. Guna means rope in the sense of a force which is pulling us. And Tama means darkness. So, living in the past is Tamaguna. My whole life is in the past, and my present is completely controlled by what's happened in the past. I'm not deliberately moving forward. I'm tied down by the past. I can't make conscious free choice, free will decisions because I'm so conditioned by past events and past conditioning that that's just controlling everything. The mode of passion means living in the future. I'm always looking what I will become or what I can do. And Sattva Gun, which our company is named after, Sattva, means living in the present. So goodness is in the present. Right now, what can I do right now in this situation I'm in to make deliberate choices? Passion is kind of dreaming, but it's not practical. You're looking in the future and you're dreaming, but you're not really present. You haven't cleaned up the past yet, and now you're dreaming about the future. Sattva is right now you can make conscious choices to go forward in ways you want to go forward. That's mindfulness in Buddhism. That's being in the present. Right now, I can make choices, I can decide. As we talked in the last lesson, I can make decisions which will affect my future right now, which are not conditioned by anything in the past. Isn't that amazing? No matter what's happened in the past, I could make conscious choices to change in ways that I've never been able to change before. I can actually do that. That's the power of sattva. That's the power of mindfulness, being in the present. Resentment creates an emotional bond with the person who hurt you. So imagine you've got a rope around your neck and it's tied to this person who hurt you. And so thoughts of this person and all the bad things that they've done kind of haunt you. And think of resentment like cutting that chain that frees you from that connection to that person. As Nelson Mandela said, nobody lives rent-free in your mind. So when someone lives in your mind, you're paying for that. Especially if the person who's living in your mind is someone who's hurt you. You're paying the rent of anger, of resentment, of hurt, of negative feelings. And so when we hold on to resentment, that resentment has created a chain, a connection to that person. And it's such a paradox because the person who hurt you theoretically is the last person you'd ever want to be thinking about. You want to think about people you like. You want to think about things that uplift you. Whatever you're for, it uplifts you. Whatever you're against, it destroys you. It wipes you of your energy. So why would you want to think of someone that you're against? But we do it all the time. Isn't that a huge paradox? So the person that hurt me is naturally the person I don't want to think of, and that's the person I'm thinking of all the time. And so I have created this emotional bond. And as I said, when you forgive, you cut that bond. You're free from the influence that person has on you, and they definitely have influence on you. The past does not equal the future. You decide how much the past will affect you. That's the empowerment of choice. That's the empowerment of decision. We think the past must affect the future, but it doesn't. We allow the past to affect the future. If you don't allow the past to affect the future, it looks like this. I am going forward to do this, even though I've never succeeded at doing that, even though the past has been this way, I've been handicapped in specific ways because of the past. Now I am deciding to go forward into the future in a different way. I can do that. It's easy. You just do it. And so many of us think, no, I can't do it. I have to act because of how I've been in the past, because of past events, past thinking, past conditioning, past ways of being. You don't have to. Even though you've been bound by resentment, you don't have to live with it another moment. You can go right now free of it. You can decide to let it go. You can do that. Isn't that amazing that we have the power to do that? I think many, many people don't realize they have that power, but we do. We have a lot more power than we think. We have free will. We have free choice. God gave us free will. It's a gift. And if you want to be kind upon yourself, use the gift that He gave you. Use the free will that He gave you. His gift is free will. Your gift to yourself is to use it. And so many times, we just throw it away and think, no, this is how I am. I can't change. This is how it's going to be. I don't like this person. That's it. That's the end of the story. It doesn't have to be that way. You're making that story. You're binding yourself into that situation. You're painting yourself into that corner. You don't have to. People are living life more in reaction to events of the past than living the way they deliberately want to. There's a very, very important principle. Now, if you're not in your life where you want to be, there's a good chance, or you're not on the way to getting there, there's a good chance that you're living more in reaction to what's happening around you or to you and from the past than deliberately deciding where you want to go and what you want to do. So, let's say there's a situation, and this situation is not conducive to where I want to go or what I want to be. Generally, people will react to that situation in a negative way, and that situation then binds them into a particular action, reaction. And they don't go where they want to go, but they go in reaction to that situation. You say something nasty, I get mad. I don't want to get mad. I want to be kind. But I react unkindly, although I feel bad after I do it, and I think, why did I do that? I want to be a better person. I want to be nicer. But I'm reacting because of how you acted. I'm acting because of the environment. I'm acting because of pressures and expectations that are put upon me. I'm acting because of social pressure. I mean, just look at how much we are controlled by social pressure, how much we're controlled by media, how much we're controlled by marketing. It's incredible. And there are many people who realize that, who pull out of this society, pull out of those social values and so-called norms, and say, I don't want to live this way. I don't want to live a materialistic life. I don't want to live a life where I'm just working hard to get money to buy things that I don't need, that are actually poisoning the planet and causing me to work jobs that I don't like and stressing me out. But a lot of people are caught in that treadmill, and they're just reacting to this propaganda. You don't have enough, you're not good enough, your neighbor's better than you should have what they have. So that's how most people live, in reaction. And that's what resentment is. It's a reaction. But you don't have to live that way. And that's empowering. That's when you become empowered. When instead of living in reaction, you live according to the decisions that are valuable for you. And the highest integrity would be to live in alignment with your spiritual nature, with your spiritual self, which are all the higher consciousness characteristics, like love, like compassion, like patience, kindness, cleanliness, forgiveness. These are our higher nature qualities and characteristics. And we can live that way, but we have to make a decision, and we have to believe that we can do that. Fear. What is fear? A lot of times we act in fear. Fear is the belief that I'm incapable of handling something. I can't do that. And then we feel pain. No, don't make me do that. I can't do that. That's a reaction to what's going on. It's not a conscious choice. Nobody wants to live in fear. Fear is low consciousness. But the funny thing is that so often we say, I'm incapable of doing that, and we've never even tried it. So how do you know you're incapable? You've never done it. But you see that fear is illogical. And so many of these lower consciousness ways of behaving, they're not logical. They don't make any sense. They're conditioned reactions. Oh, I can't do that. I could never do that. That's not possible. Well, how do you know? Oh, I just know I can't do it. Would you like to do it? Oh, yeah, I'd like to do it, but I can't. But if you'd like to do it, and you say you can't, it doesn't make any sense. You can. You have to focus on it, but you're being ruled by fear. So, if we want to go forward, we can't be ruled by our fears. Fear, the belief that I'm incapable of handling the situation. And as I said, most situations, we never even tried. How do you know you can't handle it? You never tried. One of the problems we face when we're trying to forgive is that we have to face the pain. And instinctively, most of us will avoid pain at all costs. And one of the ways we avoid pain when we're dealing with resentment is we just push it away. Push it down. We put it in a closet. We lock the door. We pretend it's not there. We just don't want to deal with it because it's too painful. The reality is we have to deal with it if we're going to move forward. And the only way out is into the pain. The only way out of pain is into it. It's one of the great life lessons that I've learned. You can't solve a problem by running away from it. And that's what most people do. You can't solve a problem by pretending it doesn't exist. You can't solve a problem by suppressing it. You can only solve a problem by facing it. So in the forgiveness process, we have to face what we're feeling. And why is it important to face what we're feeling? One of the reasons it's important because you'll realize how painful it is. Now, when you realize how painful it is, you're going to want to let it go. And if you suppress it, you don't realize how painful it is. But the problem is when you suppress it, it's acting on you. It's draining energy. It's like my battery kept draining, and nobody could figure it out. Then I finally saw that my glove box wasn't closing entirely. Because it wasn't closing, the little light in the glove box would stay on, although nobody could see it because it was covered and it just wasn't latched properly. So it was little draining, and drained the battery. So resentment's draining our energy. So we need to face it, we need to feel it. And when you face it and you feel it, it's the beginning of being able to let it go. And when you realize how painful it is, it's actually good. Because now you realize that you're carrying this pain with you all the time, that you didn't realize you were carrying. And that becomes a huge impetus to start working on letting it go, because now you realize, I'm carrying this amazing burden in my heart. Grudges are heavy burdens. This is weighing me down. I didn't realize how much it was weighing me down, and now I realize it, and that pain is giving me the impetus to let it go. Although you can't have a new beginning, you can have a new end. That's the message of forgiveness. Okay, whatever happened, happened. You can't do anything about it. You know this great definition of forgiveness? Forgiveness means to give up all hope for a better past. To give up all hope for a better past. Funny, isn't it? And isn't it true that we're lamenting over what happened? I wish that hadn't happened. Well, it happened. And when you accept that it happened and recognize, okay, I can deal with that, even though it happened, I can create a new beginning. I can't change what happened in the past. It's not a movie that I can go in and edit. I can edit my reaction to it, but specifically, I can do something. And actually, many, many people who go through the forgiveness process come out so much better that they're actually happy that they had the resentment, because it was a catalyst to improve themselves. So actually, resentment it's a great thing to deal with if you deal with it in a way that you process it and purify yourself of it and remove it. Then you'll come out and on the other end a much better person, a more elevated soul, a kinder, more compassionate person, a person who will probably never become resentful for the rest of their life ever again. Either you control your mind or your mind will control you. So, a lot of times thoughts come into our mind, right? And when the thoughts come in, we think, okay, these thoughts are in my mind and I must act on them. Wrong. You don't have to act on them, because you are not your mind. You are soul. You are spiritual. You are above your mind. You see your thoughts, and because you see your thoughts, that means you are different than your thoughts. You are conscious of your thoughts. And you can create thoughts, and you can let thoughts go. And we're going to do a little experiment now, and we're going to have some fun. So I want you to go to the next slide, and I want you to think of an elephant. Not a pink elephant, an elephant. Think of an elephant. Elephants are gray, right? Get that picture in your mind of that gray elephant. Actually, yesterday, I was walking behind 2 elephants. Can you believe it? I'm in India right now, so we have elephants here. So I was walking behind 2 gray elephants. So think of gray elephants, or go on the internet, look at the picture of an elephant. Now I want you to think of the elephant you see in this picture, the pink elephant with the sunglasses, and imagine he has some Converse tennis shoes, purple, and a New York Yankees hat. We'll make the New York Yankees hat purple. And he's got a purple necklace, and let's paint some purple polka dots. Okay. So what happened? We used our imagination to create an elephant that doesn't exist. And the first elephant we thought is the one that exists. So the one that exists represents our conditioned thoughts, thoughts that just come into our minds. And the pink elephant represents thoughts that we can put in our mind, because what we just did is we just created a new elephant out of nothing. It was just, he didn't exist, and we created something that didn't exist. So in our life, our thoughts can create something that didn't exist in the past. In our lives, we can create, I can do this, I can do that. So I can live resentment-free. I can do that. Even though I haven't been living that way, I can create that. The mind is powerful. It will allow you to do that if you control it. But if you don't control it, it's going to control you. And when it controls you, it's going to say, no, you can't do that. This person hurt you. You feel this way. And that's the way it's going to be the rest of your life. It's not true. It doesn't have to be that way. You can put different thoughts in your mind. You can create any thought you want. Isn't that amazing? That God gave us the power to create any thought we want, good or bad. Now, you might say, but all these bad thoughts come to my mind. He gave us the power to let them go also. He gave us the power to not focus on them, to not be misdirected by them. Isn't that cool, that you don't have to be misdirected by your thoughts? And you can say, bye-bye thought, I don't like you, I don't need you, so I had a better thought. Let's put this one in the mind. because this thought is going to take me where I want to go, and the other thought is going to take me exactly in the opposite direction. So, you can do that. Isn't that empowering? Isn't that amazing? So you don't have to be resentful. You can put other thoughts in your mind. You can put thoughts of appreciation for that person. You could put thoughts of compassion for that person. You can put whatever you want in your mind, and it will change everything. Resentment gives you excuses. What does it give you excuses for? It gives you excuses to fail. Did you know in the 12-step program, they go through a forgiveness process? Because they found that a lot of people degrade themselves out of resentment for someone who told them that they would not be successful. So, for example, someone tells me, you're never going to be successful, you'll probably end up as a drunkard. And out of resentment for that, I end up as a drunkard to try to get back at them, to prove to them that you messed up my life by what you said. So in order to get free from my alcoholism, I have to forgive that person who was indirectly empowering me to degrade myself. Isn't that amazing? So if I fail at something, I can always use the person who hurt me as an excuse for failing. So we can get a whole list of excuses if we hold on to resentment. And if we give it up, then we can't use any of those excuses. And that's why a lot of people don't want to give it up, because if they give it up, they have to give up their excuses that go along with it. I'm a martyr. I have reasons that I fail. I have reasons that I'm not successful, because I was hurt by this person, damaged by that person. I've been in parts of the world where there's huge segments of the population that are living in resentment. Their lives are not successful because they feel something is owed to them. They feel entitled to something, so they don't do anything. Because they were hurt, because they were oppressed, they feel entitled to do something. They feel entitled that the government should just take care of them and do everything for them, and they do nothing for themselves. So that resentment becomes their excuse for failing. And if they're failing, they'll say, well, what do you expect? We've been oppressed. You see, so resentment gives you a whole plethora of excuses which you can use to completely fail, which doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to fail? But that's the way the mind works, that sometimes we don't realize that we're making excuses. They seem very real to us. But excuses are arguments for failing. That's what they are. To sum up this lesson 2, when you let go of resentment, the effects of the past go with it. If you look at your life, some good things have happened, you look back at your past and say, oh, I remember this, that we had such a nice time, or I remember this relationship, I remember happy days, summer vacations, or good times in school, and so forth. Then you'll look at some negative things, and your consciousness will get fixed on these negative things, and you'll feel bad. Oh, this happened, I broke my leg, or I lost my friend in a car accident, and so forth. So when you look at this event that caused resentment, it has negative emotional energy connected to it. But when you forgive and you review that event, there'll be no negative emotional energy connected with it. Isn't that amazing? So now if you see a person that you have resentment for, you don't feel good. You don't want to see them, or you see them and you just feel bad. When you forgive and you see them, it's neutral. You've completely cleaned out the negative energy in that relationship. So you either see the person or you look back at that event, and it's like any other event in your life. It's of no consequence. Isn't that amazing? So in so many situations, I've seen people who have issues that they don't realize are connected to their resentment. It might be a resentment for a father, but now they have an issue with an authority figure, and they don't realize the connection. But I, having experience in dealing with forgiveness, often can put the connection together, and I say, you need to forgive your father. It will solve this relationship over here. And it's amazing how it works. It actually solves it because it cleans up this issue, which is a reflection of that issue. This issue is cleaned up, it cleans up the other issues. So it's really important to clean those up, because it can have tremendously negative effects on your relationships. Definitely, really, really important to clean up the past, any resentment issues you have. So, a little exercise we want to ask you to do. How much the past affects you. Write down ways in which a past event or past events is negatively impacting you today. Just start looking at it, looking at things that you realize today are affecting your choices or negatively impacting you, affecting relationships today in negative ways. And it'll give you, I think, an impetus to work on your resentment issues when you realize how much you're being affected by it. And try to see, if you can, how a resentment issue on this side with this person may be affecting other relationships you're having, because when you make that connection, it might open up some realizations to why you're having problem with certain individuals. That's really important. It's amazing stuff. Forgiveness is just, the impact of forgiving is just amazing. So we'll see you next time in Lesson 3.